Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today in this video we are going to be going over a 25 streets with Grievous, Inspiring, Fortified affix active. The main reason I'm doing this, well, I thought it was a good run. It's a weird route that I don't think a lot of groups run, so I just kind of wanted to show it off a little bit. I've talked about it before in previous videos, but you never know who's going to watch this one. Also, the other reason I'm doing this is because I ran into a few problems with my 0 to Hero challenge, so it put it behind. So, hoping to get that kind of stuff figured out shortly. But in the meantime, enjoy this content. So I'm going to just walk through everything that's going on in this dungeon. And then while this is distracting you guys, I'm going to continue working on that video. So let's dive in. Really quickly, I want to talk about our composition. I am on the Guardian Druid. I actually decided to play Night Fae for this key. And the reason I decided to play Night Fae is because we felt that we would be fine with the damage check, and we felt that what was probably going to end up happening is that I would fall over and wipe the key. So Night Fae tends to be a little bit more tankier because Convoke can do a lot of really cool things. It's a pretty powerful defensive. With the new legendary, it's now only a 1 minute CD, so you can pretty much have it for every pull. It can cast Pulverize, it can cast heals on you. It can just do a lot of really cool stuff that normal Guardian Druids don't have access to, and you do 12 spells in just 3 seconds. So 12 globals in 3 seconds is a ton of extra survivability boost. It's pretty low on the damage boost unless you're boomboxing, or owl weaving as some people call it. So there might be a few times in this dungeon you'll see me shift out of bear form to do damage, but most of the time the Convoke is being used as a defensive cooldown, or to try to heal the group up. I am running Naya. I think Karain is typically better. I think Naya is a little bit more tankier, but Karain's typically the play. I don't have Karain unlocked. I'm lazy, and I normally don't play Night Fae. So that's the reason for that. We're running a Venthyr Outlaw Rogue, Holy Priest, Serve Hunter, and a Demonology Warlock. So fairly strong classes. The Serve Hunter's obviously meta. Outlaw Rogue and the Demo Warlock are a little bit lower on the tier, but they're still like A tier. They're really strong. This is a pretty good comp for this place. The Inspiring affix causes a few problems. You have to really take the start of the dungeon really slow. Now, some people would say like, oh, maybe you can just CC out the Inspired mob, but almost everything in these first couple pulls have priority kicks or need to be stunned occasionally just for your tank to be able to survive, or at least a Guardian Druid. Blood DKs and Brewmasters are probably fine. But CCing something out and then leaving it for later to do it by itself, like single target, is just not efficient. So we split up a lot of pulls really early on. This first pull is really scary. This is typically where you want to be really aggressive with your defensives and offensive cooldowns as a group. That Radiant Pulse on Grievous week just adds so much damage and healing that's required. Our healer right now is doing 10k. I'm doing 18k towards the end of the pull. Luckily, Demonology Warlock and the Venthyr Outlaw Rogue bring a ton of single target damage. You can kind of see this being displayed here. And then I saved Incarn for that first pull, and I'm using it on this pull here. There's a couple of priority kicks. Honestly, everything should be kicked. You want to kick as many Hyperlight Bolts as possible. But there's also Hardlight Barrier. If you don't have a Purge in your group, you shouldn't let that go off. If you do, it's fine. If it goes off, you just have to make sure you purge it almost immediately. Because what it does is it reflects magic damage, which is... I've seen Frost Death Knights get obliterated by that mechanic, with like when they have Breath of Cindergrosa up. So that Hardlight Barrier, as well as the Stasis Beam from the Specialist. Outside of that, you just kind of want to kick any Spark Burns or Hyperlight Bolts that are going out, because it just causes extra group damage. You can see that I'm healing 16k HPS here on even just this 4 target pull, which is just nuts. That's why Blood DKs are meta, by the way, because they can do that forever. I need to have Incarn and Convoke to be able to do that. So next, this is the pull I'm talking about. We pull this group back, and we're going to get a kick on the Specialist. And I think I end up turning him around again and getting a Typhoon on him to get him even further away, because I just don't want that patrol being pulled. If that patrol pulls, we would learn pretty quickly that it's probably a wipe and maybe a burnt key. So you can't really kick anything here, so just making sure that you're kicking the Specialist and purging this officer is really important. If you don't have a purge, I don't know, you might, yeah, I don't know what to do. Have Hearth out or roll Blood Elf. something like that. So you saw that barrier go off there. The officer typically will cast it on the lowest target, so it's not always going to be on the officer. So as we're focusing this specialist down, we're also just watching out for that buff to pop up, and we just purge it right away, and making sure that we're rotating kicks. Something that we didn't do great in this dungeon is communicate kicks. We were in Discord. For the most part, we were okay, but there were some pulls where, like the pull previous to this one, we weren't kicking a lot, which definitely added to the healing. We're going to line of sight, wow, words are hard. We're going to line of sight once again over to this pillar here, just to pull them back. I don't want to risk any kind of like frontal projections, like Divine Star, pulling this extra pack over here. Also, the way that beams will spawn from the Overseer, you just don't want them to be in a weird spot and push you in a direction you don't want to be. So this one spawned out in range, so the melee are fine for now, and we're just focusing down the officer. We actually, I think he ended up tyranting the officer, that's why it just got obliterated here, which is fine. The Overseer is scary, but the only thing that's really scary are these beams. So getting down the guy who does casts makes it easier to move. And if you can purge these hard light batons, like anyone in your group, they add a lot of damage to your tank, because they're pretty sure it adds arcane damage. And then here we're going to chain. I have Incarn back up. We're going to get a kick on the specialist right away to get them stacked, because he'll open with Spark Burn. Even if you try to like pull him back a little bit, they'll just open right away with a cast. So you kick the Spark Burn right away just to get them stacked, and then you just kind of cleave everything. What's cool about Stasis Beam is you don't necessarily need to kick it. If you have a stun or a disorient or a knockback or a displacement, whatever it might be, it'll stop the cast, and it'll put it on its internal cooldown, and it won't cast again for like 15 seconds or so. You can also assign one melee kick to it, which is fine, or just one person in general to make sure that it's always locked down. And I am putting down a marker here because once you get to a high enough fortified key, which 25 is pretty much that barrier, I would actually even say like 24s, 23s you should do this, or getting in the habit of doing it. But when you pull back this Portalmancer, he's going to start with Radiant Pulse. You can line of sight. So our priest was a little slow, and our hunter was a little slow. I might have pulled early though. They could have probably been in position like earlier. I accidentally said focus myself here. But you can line of sight that, which is really cool. It saves a lot of damage, especially on Grievous week. Grievous adds roughly 10% extra healing to each pull. So if you can minimize that group damage to not be in Grievous, you're going to make the dungeon a lot easier. So here we go. We LOS. Our rogue didn't. It's a little tricky sometimes. And then you want to make sure you kick this Glyph of Restraint. Glyph of Restraint, I think, can also be LOS'd here. That's why it only went on, I think, me and the priest. But all we did was we MD'd it. So priests are really broken in here. You also can use Imp Dispel if you're playing with a Destro Warlock. But he's playing Demonology, so they typically play with their Felguard out. We kicked Restraint there, and then we're getting ready. Typically after Restraint, or after Rift Blast, he typically will possibly cast Radiant Pulse. It's not always guaranteed, but that's kind of when you want to keep, like, you look out for it. Right after Rift Blast, start inching to LOS. If he starts casting a bolt, he will typically cast 2 bolts before he casts it. So there's like this really weird spell pattern he does. We missed a Restraint again. We were really bad about kicks in this dungeon. But we have MD here, and it's cleared. The biggest thing about Restraint is it makes dodging Rift Blast a lot harder, but on top of that, it also does like rot damage. Like, it's just a dot. So if you, on Grievous weeks, it'll put everyone in Grievous, and it's going to start making people go down a little bit faster. On pull, we just want to be a little careful of threat. Having double MD, though, is really, really nice for a Guardian Druid. So I'm going to pop Incarn in a second here, and we're going to just start ripping this guy. His body armor will always spawn facing wherever the tank is at to start. So you always want to face him away from your group to start, or typically over by this green wall, because your range will be in the middle. So it'll start on the green wall, and it's going to rotate counterclockwise. Containment cells can be immune, so our Hunter Turtles here. This makes sure that we can have like full uptime on it. Cloak of Shadows also works. DKs are really good at it. I think Icebound Fortitude and AMS both work, since it's technically a magical ability. And there's also a cool thing later I'm going to point out that Priest can do specifically to buy extra time to defeat the containment cell. You can actually life grip someone away, and the boss doesn't go to the containment cell. They actually will chase the player. So you see our Warlock comes to this corner, our priest is going to stand over here. So as soon as the boss is close, if we need it, she's going to grip. She gripped early here just to test it, actually. So you can buy a little extra time, but I don't think that's ever really needed. But just a cool thing if you are really close or someone in your group messes up as a priest player. Sorry, I have this pen and I'm just going to probably fiddle with it the whole time. We'll see. Zo'phex is a boss that hits really, really hard. So I did ask our Warlock to put Curse of Weakness on this guy to make his attacks a little bit slower. It really helps on Tyrannical weeks. On Fortified weeks, it's not as noticeable because it's Fortified. But once again, it's on our lock. We're going to move out here to the very corner. And we're good. If you try to feign or vanish it as like a rogue or hunter, it will go on someone else. So I recommend using your immunity first, and then next time it goes on you, then you can feign it to try to put it on someone else who has an immunity. Yep, I drink coffee out of the stir. Judge me. So we're going here again with the... Oh, actually, that's fine. Okay. All right, so our routing through here is really weird. A lot of groups tend to... Some groups will low skip here. This isn't uncommon. But what we do after this is a little uncommon. This pull's not scary. I LOS around this like pillar here. That's why you saw me stand over in this area where my mouse is spinning at. They come over, you get a kick on the officer, you focus woe, and then you'll get the woe skip here. One melee kick for woe, and then we'll kill this trash. I'm gonna just skip ahead though. So here we are, woe skip. I'm making sure I'm out of Grievous. I'm popping stealth, and then we are booking it. So a lot of groups just jump down to the left and they go. We could have even shrouded there. We didn't even need to kill woe. We probably could have just gotten At least most groups could have just shrouded there, but this is way too far for us to shroud. We're actually doing a unique strat where we're going to pull most of the courtyard trash. I wouldn't recommend this to most groups or pugs. It's a ton of damage, and if you're not coordinated, like if you don't have precise kicks and you don't have stuns when you need to spread for like slams and stuff, this could get really, really, really messy. So we're going to pull the Sparkcaster, we're going to tag it, it's going to move about 5 yards, we'll get the kick on it, and then we all need to stack on the blue marker. I'm now going to grab the other Peacekeepers with the relics, and they're also going to come in. And now we're keeping a kick rotation on the Sparkcaster here. Everything else should die pretty easily, and we're going to rotate CCs for these barriers that the Peacekeepers put up. Now, the big coordination aspect of this is when we have to spread for the slam. So the Sparkcaster goes down, which is good. The slam, I'm trying to keep on blue. We're going to spread here, and then we're going to try to CC. So I'm going to War Stomp. War Stomp stunned him only for like half a second, though. And then we just stack back up. If everyone's in melee range, these things do nearly no group damage, and it's all physical on the tank. So the tank does a pretty good job at just like basic mitigation. But again, like if you're not in melee, they're going to rush at your range, and the range are going to die. They do so much damage. Like one of these, I think in this difficulty, hits for like 40k, maybe even more, depending on verse. Like look at that. One went on our priest, and she went down to 30% health. So we have to just be super careful when doing these. Most groups try to avoid this trash at all costs. For a Guardian Druid, Incarnation is such a strong cooldown on such a long cooldown that we kind of have to pull around it. It's a little bit easier as Venthyr, but Night Fae just gave me better defenses for like this room because these post workers also do a ton of damage. The one thing that we've talked about in this route too is that there is a lot of downtime between like running back and forth. The reason for that is to pull around my Incarnation cooldown. And that sounds kind of selfish, but bears suck. Like bears are such a bad tank. Outside of Incarn, if you're playing Venthyr, like there are Venthyr players who are doing 26s and 27s, but man, you feel it after like 24s. Like 24s, like there's pulls where you're like running for your life because you don't have Incarn, your Barkskin's on cooldown, and like you have nothing. You have Survival Instincts for a few seconds, you're out of Frenzied Regen charges, like just you're limited. You're very limited compared to like a Blood DK or a Brewmaster who always has something up or available. Gonna get the Roar and the Knock on that Sorter, get it all stacked. We're going for here. We're just gonna give us enough cooldown reduction to go back to the courtyard to do another big pull. The big pull isn't bad. I think it would have been better if we were playing a Destro lock instead of a Demo lock, but the Demo lock was more for the idea like, okay, we're gonna have some priority targets in the first half of the dungeon, smaller pulls, and there's 5 bosses. So we need to min-max like more single target damage, which our Demo Lock does a really, really good job at doing that. You're going to see at the end of the key, he's going to end up being top damage. I think he finishes it around like 19k. And on the mailroom boss, oh my god. He peaks at like 127k single target. How he does it, I have no idea. So our lock is a little cracked. He's playing Night Fae though, if that helps. Alright, so Incarnation's back up. We have Coordinated Assault in 10. We have Boon of the Ascended. We have Tyrant. And we have Adrenaline Rush in 15. So we're going to be doing the center pull. Something we should have done and we ended up doing later on accident, but we should have done and we planned for was pulling in these Peacekeepers on the side. So we're going to do the center pull. This pull is really, really scary. So here we're inching in. We're kind of getting set up. People are getting their set focuses. I'm kicking Star and we're moving to purple. And then I'm going to get knocked and I'm going to try to stay on purple as long as I can because I want to keep these things stacked as tight as possible for our Survival Hunter, as well as just like to make sure we can get like kick stuns. But here, this guy is on the side of me, which is bad. I didn't notice this. And when I get power kicked here, I fly into these Peacekeepers, but it ends up being fine. I think they charge. No, they don't charge at all. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to just back into this corner. So the Enforcer enrages, and something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when the Enforcer enrages, they deal more damage. But not only do they deal more damage, they also take more damage, and they also cause everything around them to take more damage. So if you can survive by rolling some heavier cooldowns, you can actually get through trash faster. This was unfortunate. The Peacekeeper somehow got out there. Oh, the Shining Force knocked him out here, and then he casted his like 8-second channel. So we lost some damage there. Now, of course, with like a Destro Lock, and if our Serve Hunter was like doing serve stuff, the number should be a little bit higher on this pull, but it was a fine pull. It just like kind of got spread out and it was a little janky with stacking at the start. But again, if anyone moves out of melee for this pull, they'll probably die because the instant they're out of melee, like they'll probably get charged by 2 or 3 Peacekeepers. But upside, if no one moves out of melee, there's no damage. Like you can see our healers only having to do 6k HPS and a 25 Tyrannical or Fortified. Alright, so we're looking at our Lust timer now. We have 2 minutes. We really want Lust for Mailroom. And at the pace we're at, we can Lust soon. We can technically Lust again right when it's off of cooldown. And then we can Lust for the final boss if needed. I don't think we end up doing that. I think we end up, if I'm not mistaken, we end up just holding Lust for Zo'asmi, the last boss of the instance. Which I think was a fine play. We finished this key with like a minute left or so. Minute and a half. 2 deaths, I think, overall. So I had an early knock here to move the Male Elemental. I have the purple marker down. This is where we want to get the Male Elemental to. Just like that with Shining Force. The reason for this is because the pools that spawn on the boss spawn around this like kind of dog bone shaped, like, I don't know, like thing. Ornate trimming. So what this will allow us, so we banish the Male Elemental so we can use it for boss. It's going to give us this massive haste shield, and it's going to put us kind of at the center of the room to quickly, or to spend the most amount of time in the haste shield before having to soak. So I'm putting down a few markers just for like reference, like we have to go green side, we have to go skull side, and then purple's in the middle. And as soon as this thing dies, we are pulling. And watch our Demo Lock's damage down here just shoot super high. So he's getting a PI with a Lust, 80k, 90k, 100k, 110k, 122, 130k is what he peaked at there. So much that I lost threat to the Postmaster, to his Tyrant. So pretty nuts. We soak a few pools towards the center because we don't feel like we're going to need the whole room space. This boss is already at 40% health, which is nuts. We've been in the fight for 30 seconds and he's at 40% health. We see that it's going to be near Skull because of the lights that are on the wall that light up. We're going to start grabbing these packages and we're going to head over. Since he's in fan mail, I can shift out of bear form freely to move. But we have to quickly go back because once his fan mail is done, he's going to start autoing us. And then our group does a pretty good job at getting everything over to the chute. And now with the boss sub like 1500, 1.5 mil with a second Tyrant coming up that he's ramping for, we call for a tunnel. So none of us soak these pools. We let them come in. Fan mail is going off. I Boomkin Convoke here for extra damage. So that means I'm shifting into Boomkin form, I'm pressing Convoke for the full channel, and then at the end I'm shifting back into Bear form. Our Rogue immune soaks with evasion, and he popped Cloak there. I think he forgot if it was Shadow or Physical, so he popped both, which is fine. And then we're tunneling. Once the first bomb lands, you have 30 seconds. So if you can kill in 30 seconds, you're good. Look at that single target damage from our Demo Lock, 33k. And not to even to also show that our Serve Hunter and our Rogue did 14.5k and 15.5k. That's just, we were able to just crush that boss in a minute and 30 seconds. So that's always really fun. I'm checking here for patrol. We're pulling this one group and we're going to LOS on this blue marker. And the reason for this is we're trying to get a woe buff so we can quickly do RP in like 20 seconds. I've seen groups like have people split off to come and do this RP while other people clear trash. Our group found that's like not as efficient because like then the damage for the group is a lot lower, like for that pull, and the pull lasts longer, but to each their own, I guess. There's a lot of things we need to change about our route before we can start doing anything higher than 25. A lot of optimizations. Just Guardian Druid is such a weird tank to pull around because a lot of tanks can do everything each pull with like cooldowns, but for Guardian Druid, it's like Incarn is all or nothing. So here we have Woe. It goes down here. And now we want to finish up the trash, and when it's getting low, I'm going to start going and doing RP by myself. Since I have threat, they're going to chase me. They're not going to cast. So it's very easy for the DPS to kind of just finish them off here. So the way you start this officially is by buying the item. I'm looking that it's a common drum. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, where's the instrument guy? It's right off to the right here. So I'm going to go into stealth. I'm going to drop it. It's going to take me out of stealth. I see that it's a right Purians. Is that what it's called? So which is food. So it's going to be up on the south. It's going to be on the south side of the dungeon here. And then I see that it's going to be thread or the bright weave. So I'm going to go back over to the tailor, which is right by the entrance. When I say entrance, I mean this like little nook over here. We get one strong arm spawning, but we're not in combat because we're concealed. So that's really important. If you have the woe buff while you're doing this, you won't get in combat with anything. As long as you don't use any abilities. If you use an ability, it's going to remove that shroud for a few seconds, and then that will cause the mobs to see you. And these mobs are really inefficient because they don't give any percent at all. So you're basically wasting time, you're wasting damage having to kill them. They don't have a lot of health, but still pretty rough. Our lock is trying to put down a lock gate here. He successfully does, but then it bugs and the end of the gate disappears. Like, look, there's no purple gate anywhere. And when I try to take it, it says target not line of sight. So we think it clipped through the wall. All right, so this boss is really weird. So you pick up a musical instrument. There's drums, which is typically by healer because they can stand still. The front guy has to go in between these three little things and they jump up in the air. And then the three across the center, which is like guitar, saxophone, and trumpet, they do this sliding animation. So you typically want your most mobile to grab. You want your most mobile class to grab the horn, which is what I have, but I ended up grabbing it because I'm a tank. And then the other three just have the guitar. This isn't really that important until the last phase. But I think a lot of people miss out on the extra damage bonus you get from doing this right. So I'm holding Incarnation here because if these mobs stay up for, I think it's like 45 seconds or a minute, they actually enrage and they do double damage. 100% increased damage, which is just scary. So I'm holding Incarn, and then we'll have things like Res Arrow and stuff back up for it. So we're back in position here. This phase lasts for about 20 seconds or so. Typically, those will never spawn in the same spot, so it's kind of always like this little U shape. So here, 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 and then it's probably going to be here or in the middle. Yeah, so it's over here. We just have to be careful as for threat as well. As you can see, they're kind of running all over the place. We want to make sure we're kicking bolts, and we do have a kick order here. So me and the hunter are on the disruptive patron, and then the security, or yeah, this big security guy, we have our rogue kicking. We stun on the teleport so he doesn't leap out. And we have Incarn rolling. It doesn't have Ravenous Frenzy paired with it because I'm a Night Fae, but we're still doing a good bit of damage here with it. Just the tier set alone. And this stuff should die pretty quickly. I'm going to just skip ahead, actually. So we're back on notes. This is the second little intermission. You can see our buff here. We're at 9, and then we hit our last note, and we hit the 12 stack, so it gives us our buff. I'm tagging the boss with Moonfire, tagging with Moonfire, and then we are focusing the boss to make sure that we don't lose threat. And we're kicking that menacing shout on like a 15-second internal. Then after this, he's gonna do the suppression spark. I'm trying to keep the slime away from the middle. I bait it there, I move in. The notes are gonna spawn, and then I'm gonna use my weapon to reset my buff. If you miss your notes, you lose this buff, and you're missing so much damage and haste. Which is why this boss can quickly go from being like dying really, really fast to dying really, really slow. Yeah, it's because you have cooldowns up maybe when this guy comes out, but at the same time, if you miss that damage bonus, this boss takes a very, very, very long time to kill. And that's pretty much it. So I'll try to show it again because it was hard to see with like and everything going on. But we're getting sucked in here. You're staying in the middle. You're staying in this. And then right when there's a second left, you can see my note spawn here. When you jump up in the air, I might be wrong about this, but as a tank, like I take almost no damage. And then the DPS are getting notes to slide out, which gets them out of range of it. So you wait, you face your direction, then you slide. And that should get you out of it. I jump here. I take a little bit of damage, but it's not a ton. Rogue dies to swirl on the ground though. But you can see like I reset my buff again. And actually I think everyone reset their buff. We decided it's not worth battle resing because we are about to kill him. So it's pretty easy kill here. We'll fast forward, we get the res, we run out. This is something that I've been meaning to talk about though. So strong arms that spawn will stay there after you finish. So you'll see when we're running out, this strong arm is actually right here. You can see that he's worth 0%. It's not worth pulling him. So I'm letting my group know, hey, there's a strong arm out here. Don't pull him. I'm going to put down a world marker. And our rogue actually released to come back. So he's going to sap him. And we also have Mind Soothe. But you can just run around this guy if you go like how I went and hug the wall. Pretty easy. And now what we're doing is we're just heading all the way back. That's the one problem with this route, is that there's like a little bit of running, and especially without woe. But being able to mount this dungeon, I felt like it wasn't that big of a time loss, but we're trying to figure out ways to optimize this a little bit. Maybe clearing more trash and using this portal. The portal is actually really fast to use, but that would require us to clear all of this trash first. So what we're going to do is we're waiting here, we're stacking. Our hunter went in to try to start our P. He did it incorrectly, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We're pulling these Peacekeeper back. Unfortunately, I think they just dashed me. I'm going to pull the Sparkcaster, and then he's going to come about 5 to 10 yards. We're going to get a kick on the Scintillate, and then we're going to stack. Here we were going to kill Vi for boss, but then we ended up actually, I think, clearing more trash before we went to boss. So one thing, just again here, we're focusing Sparkcaster, making sure we're kicking Scintillates plus Hyperlight Salvo. We're coordinating like AoE stuns, mostly for the shields, but also just to interrupt as well if we're out of kicks. And then, yeah, we're just cleaving down Vi. And then after this pull goes down, I think we do patrol. There's a few spots to pull patrol to. I'm going to try to pull him to this table, but it just doesn't go well. I missed the kick here, and then we keep missing kick. Got kicked there, but it also got rooted or stunned, so now it's still not in group. Our rogue's not kicking. Finally, kick goes off. Force multiplier means they're all going to take more damage. Power kick actually launches me here. So this is where it becomes really awkward. I'm trying to like reposition them, and they're just not. They're not cooperating at all. Power kick launches me again. I'm just getting kind of frustrated. There is a way to do it on this table. I just messed up almost every single time. So here we go. I think we finally get it here. Right in the corner. Bare butt tucked underneath the table. And yeah, the phalanx shield we need to make sure we stun, which we do a good job of. And power kick. There we go. Got it. Nice and easy. Alright, so that pull goes down and then we go to boss. Now, here's the problem with the boss. Is that we didn't start the RP. So this isn't a boss you just run in, start the RP, and leave. There's a certain amount of text, or dialogue text that has to be sprechen. I don't even know if that's the word. Before the boss will actually trigger the RP. And the line ends with teeth. I don't remember the exact line by heart. I'm not that much of a nerd. I'll point it out though when I see it. So this one. What I need is a distraction, the kind with sharp teeth. As soon as she says this, you're good to go. But until she says this, someone has to be in this room. There might be like a specific spot in the hallway maybe you can stand. I know people pull trash into this room, but man, moving 50, 60 yards, even more with peacekeepers is not good. So standing here is a little bit of a waste of time. We could have been a little bit more efficient about this. So she'll disappear. She unlocks the boss. If you do this properly, we would have been outside clearing trash, and the boss would have spawned, started, and then ran out of the room, and we would have gotten like boss timers, and then it would have despawned right away. So we kill here. So Ur's gonna go down. Alcrux is at 40%. Demoloc's just doing big damage. I put down an X marker. That's where I'm gonna be pulling the second boss. They kind of fixed the door strat. There used to be a door strat where you can hold them over there. The orbs don't stack up as nice as they used to. And then also, like, trying to get the third boss threat is really tough when you're in this corner. So I like to go to X because it's easier for me to taunt Gold Fuse or whatever her, I don't remember what her name is. The little shit-stained goblin that calls herself a boss. This dude hurts the most. If any, like when you're tanking this guy hurts. You need to purge that shield for the flagellation protocol, and then when you purge, you have to kick. So we have a lot of purges in this group. I think almost everyone can purge except the rogue, but the rogue's a blood elf. So you just purge kick almost right away. If not, it's just a tank buster, but man, do you need those defensives like towards the end. So we want to try to minimize the damage your tank takes early on so they can use their heavier CDs later in the fight. And then it kind of goes back between this purification protocol. You can imp dispel this if you have a Destro. We don't, so we don't do that. You can MD it and then obviously just regular dispel. You can also Cloak of Shadow. I think you could diffuse it as well as a Windwalker Monk. You could diffuse magic. Flagellation protocol. We purged it, but no one kicked. I had kick available, but I was like trying to target the next boss, so I was kind of like all over the place. Here comes Gold Fuse, and then we want Ashlight to die in this corner. The reason it's good to have him die in this corner is the orbs will just kind of bounce off these cages and kind of shoot right back to you, so you can typically get 20 stacks a little bit faster. If you don't know, this gluttony buff, it allows you to consume the orbs, you don't take damage from them, and instead you clean up the room, and for each stack you get a damage increase buff. So you typically, if you're really min-maxing it, you want to try to give this to someone who has CDs coming up. They'll pick up all their orbs, and then as soon as their thing fades and they have like a 16 stacks or whatever, they can just rip their CDs and do a bunch of damage to this boss. So really the end of the fight typically ends when Ashlight dies, because this boss just dies like naturally, just to like having a damage increase from people who are using gluttony. Really, really easy. We're just gonna run out here. Make sure we're staying away, letting our Warlock pick up orbs in melee. And then also, Gluttony should typically stay in melee, so melee don't have to do like a crazy dance. Unfortunately, our priest was in range, so we come out here out of the res arrow to try to break her out, and then we're moving back towards the boss. Towards Ashlight, I should say. And then melee can stand inside of the Gluttony player and not have to worry about dodging orbs. So I'm going to move into the bot, pick up a bunch of stacks here, stay for one more set. If you're inside of that, her Whirling Annihilation or whatever it's called, just be super, super careful. Like roll a cooldown, Survival Instinct, Spark Skin, whatever. Or if you're a different tank, obviously, use whatever you have in your toolkit. It does a lot of physical damage. It's survivable to walk in it for a second, but not ideal. All right, so 91% trash. Fourth boss goes down. So Asme's left plus a mini boss. There's a cool trick here to start RP. You can have someone stand on top of this ledge, and as soon as you pull her, they can step off and go up before getting in combat, which will trigger the 30-second RP window upstairs, which means when we're done with this mini boss, we can go upstairs and right into boss, which is going to be good for both. Like, it's a good time save, but also our Demo Lock does this really cool thing where he basically builds up imps. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. He builds up imps towards the end of a pull, and then what that means is he can go into the next pull with a ton of imps loaded up for either a Mega Tyrant or an Implosion. Or both? I don't know. Those are words he says to me all the time, and I don't understand how they work. So right here, this table is amazing. I've talked about this before in a previous video. This table here on the south side of the courtyard prevents you from getting sucked together, And also shock mines, because of the ground clutter here, they need a certain amount of room to spawn, so they only spawn out here where no one should be. It makes this extremely easy. The coolest thing about this table too is that short classes can also see over it. If you are a Vulpera, a gnome, I think a dwarf occasionally, you cannot see over the wall that's up on like the stage platform. And when you're LOS and you're being sucked by lethal force, you literally can't do damage, which is a huge annoyance. And tanks think it's okay to stay up there, and it's not. You need to find a better spot. This table is a good alternative. It's a little far away, but nonetheless, this table works wonders. Also, if you pull Peacekeepers on top of here, they won't charge because these people are technically close enough, and they can still do damage, as long as everyone's on the tank. Very, very easy. No one has to move here. Everyone's going to be in melee range. I can go on and on about the benefits. Actually, no, I can't. That's it. Really good table. Really good spot. Look at these shock mines. They never spawn on top of us. And yeah, lethal force almost kills our lock there. And now when we go upstairs, we have 4.5 minutes, 1 death on the board. We have Lust up, Lust/Hero, whatever you want to call it. So Esme is available to hit immediately. We're waiting for everyone to get in position, and we're pulling off to the left-hand side here. The reason for that is when you're in the center, these portals, if they go over you, can port you immediately. And I just found it's easier to dodge it on the side. There's probably a benefit to staying in the middle, but I don't, so here we are. We want to be careful of this first Shuri because there is a chance that it could spawn underneath us. We see that it's in the far corner. We're going to look at square to port instantly. We go through square now. Someone went to circle, which is fine. I think it was our hunter. And then divide comes out. When divide comes out, everyone wants to be in the same quadrant. What I mean by quadrants is you act as if the room was already fully divided. So it divides down the center here like this, and it divides down the middle like this. It lines up with this trim here. So you basically have like your quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. They obviously don't have to have those numbers, but just as a representation. You just want to make sure everyone's pretty much on top of the boss. So when divide goes out, you're all in the same quadrant and you're all together as a group, because if someone gets cut off, healing is obviously not possible. That player's now not doing damage, and it can become a real shit show. Now, one thing that was really weird about this boss kill in particular is that I haven't seen it bug like this in a long time, but they did rapid fire Shuris. And I'm sure some of you might remember that bug, but there was a bug where it would just basically be Shuri, 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 and you had to constantly dodge. And it was like the most obnoxious thing because you lost uptime on the boss. Plus Shuri, sometimes the way that the portals are laid out, you can't get through, especially when Shuris are overlapping and stuff. So you're going to see it towards the end. I think after the next time once we do the double technique, that's when you're going to see Zo'asmi just fucking rip. So we go through circle here. I get the first kick. I move out. I boomkin. I boombox here. Got a full moon. Nice 34k crit. Nice. And then our rogue/hunter are going to kick again. So our rogue. So here's the first Shuri. So we see that's orange. So we're going to go orange triangle. Or sorry, circle triangle. I don't know how many of you call them by their like the world marker colors, but that's what I always use. So here's another Shuri already coming out again. So now it's at triangle. So we have to, I call stay here because it's going to go over this circle first, and then we can move through this circle. And then we move through. He ports through, and then I think he does Shuri again. This isn't supposed to happen if I'm not mistaken. So now we have to, okay, we're thinking, okay, we can go through circle, and then we wait here for either blue or circle again. So we go through square. Fuck, I do it again. And our lock gets stuck. Our lock is way over here. You can see him running through. He just runs through. He says, fuck it. And then he ends up bleeding out. And then another Shuri, dude. Like, what is this? So we go through blue, square. Fuck. And then double technique is through back through square, then triangle. We get the one kick, and then I'm going to just basically stay here. And his next Shuri, we're going to just pull him to this corner if it happens. We get the kick, quick blade. Don't remember if he does Shuri. No, we're good. That's the most obnoxious shit. I wish Blizzard would fix it. I don't think that's supposed to happen. It did. We did a good job reacting to it. We got lucky with portals. Luckily, we also have classes with immunities, which is nice. But holy shit, man. Quad Shuris back to back to back to back. That's nuts. Overalls were 18k, 16.8, and 15.9. Demo lock Outlaw Rogue Serve Hunter. I did only 8k and then 5-2. I do a lot more as Venthyr, but I felt like Knife was a much better because it allowed me to off-heal and also have more survivability in those situations where I needed it. So that's pretty much the run. It's a weird route. If people want the route, I can link it below. It's very heavy at the end of the dungeon, where you basically do very light pulls at the start, because obviously that trash sucks, and then you skip right to the end. It makes the courtyard really nice because it's very open, so you don't have to worry about like power kicks getting, you know, kicked into other trash, or people body pulling, or like tab targeting. So that part's really nice, but outside of that, yeah, that's the run. So hopefully you guys learned something. If you have any tips or suggestions, or maybe what you do in this place, let me know. I love streets. It's one of my favorite keys currently. Both this and Gambit are just extraordinarily enjoyable. And I'm super excited for them to be around next season. So, all right, I'm not going to ramble anymore. I got to go finish working on this Keystone Hero Challenge thingy. I hope I don't have any more video editing issues, but I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.